Welcome to the daily briefing from interest.co.nz. I'm David Chaston. Today we review the latest population trends, we update the job vacancy monitor, preview Neville Bennett's latest opinion piece, and we'll wrap up with some other recent updates. Last year's census of our population revealing some updates on how our population is growing and moving. It is also allowing us to update our population projections. The South Island now is home to more than 1 million people, breaking through that level for the first time. That's slightly less than a quarter of the national population of 4.2 million. More than a third of all South Islanders live in Christchurch. Auckland is by far the fastest growing region and home to 1.3 million. In fact, more than half the national population growth was in the Auckland region, even though less than a third of the country lives there. Clearly there is a quickening pace in the drift north and the drift to the main centres. Everywhere except Canterbury and Auckland grew slower than the national average. Many regions are in population decline, highlighting the fact that almost 3/4 of us live in urban areas. Our population may be growing at 1% per year, but that is skewed towards those of retirement age. Their ranks grew by almost 3% last year, while the number of children 15 years and under shrunk. And consider this, our population grew by 43,000 in the year to June 2007, and that was only after 83,000 people migrated here permanently from overseas. If growth continues at current rates at modest net migration and medium fertility and mortality rates, we will have 5 million people living here in 20 years. The Department of Labour's Job Vacancy Monitoring Index showed no change in September, holding its lowest level in almost 4 years. Overall, job vacancy rates were up a modest 1% in September when compared with the same period a year ago. Demand for highly skilled positions were also up 1%, while those for other skills were down 1%. However, vacancies for trade positions were up 5%, and for semi-skilled and unskilled positions, they were up 3%. The biggest increase in demand was for IT positions, which were up a substantial 22%. Vacancy rates fell in the main centres, but further south and further west you go, there were big rises in vacancies. We suspect there is a pretty good correlation between those regions where demand is highest and the places where people are emigrating from, either internally or to Australia. We have today posted a new opinion piece by Dr. Neville Bennett. He takes the view that we need a more proactive position by our financial system regulators and compares our type of response with those in other OECD countries, especially the USA. All financial institutions are vulnerable to a run on them when confidence is shaken, and it takes only a few to start a run. He makes the point that even the regulators cannot predict when or with whom this may happen, so it's completely unreasonable to expect ordinary depositors to do so, and even more unreasonable to let those that do not start a run hang out to dry when one is started by others. The financial markets are complex, and financial institutions are now expected to manage that complexity with sophisticated management. That makes it even harder for depositors to assess them. Dr. Bennett looks at the struggles to contain the credit crunch consequences in the US and the heady problems being wrestled with by managers of companies in the financial system. A buyer beware hands-off approach may have been okay in a previous generation, but in today's internationally interlinked world, asking the most vulnerable to pay the price of system wobbles is now just plain wrong. You can link to Dr. Bennett's article from the news menu on this website. And finally today, a quick wrap-up of some other recent news. The spot wholesale electricity price continues its seasonal fall, dipping below 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Lake storage is back to long-run normal levels with above-average river inflows. Non-hydro generation levels are low. The only thing not normal are the price rises at retail and commercial levels, mainly by state-owned generators. Going up rather than down is the international price of gold. In the past week it has risen above $760 an ounce on both the London and New York markets. $760 an ounce is more than 36,000 New Zealand dollars a kilo. A rising price of gold directly relates to the uncertainty and risk investors perceive in the international financial markets. You can get more news and stay up with Newsmaker views on our news page. Join us again Thursday for the freshest finance news on the web, when we'll bring you the latest on the Reserve Bank's OCR decision at 9 AM. We'll see you then.